am surrounded by wrestling fans. Not sports entertainment fans. Professional wrestling fans!
Well, enough is enough, and it's time for a change!
Professional wrestling! This is it! This is us standing up!
Yes! 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 Yes!
That's 13-14!
Dina, I am the best in the world.
Cause that's the bottom line. Cause Stone Cold said so.
Lovely people of the wrestling world, it is me, that HEAD, back with you for another episode of the Wrestling Matters podcast. That's right. And I believe, if I'm correct, ladies and gents, boys and girls of all ages, it is episode 111 of the Wrestling Matters podcast. How are we all doing? Hope you guys are well in whatever it is you are doing. Episode 1-1, episode 1-2, I don't know. I've lost count. I've done that many. It's unbelievable. But anyway, it's another installment of the Wrestling Matters podcast. Hope you guys are well. Hope you guys are well in whatever it is you are doing. I'm still on a high from my team last week, May 7th, getting promoted. But I don't care about that. It's not about that anymore now. It's about wrestling. And today's show, we're going to talk Raw, Smackdown, NXT, TNA, Ring of Honor, and ICW. All on this show. Also, the final part of the Andrew Lockheart interview as well. And plus a few other things here and there as well that I will fit on the show. However, I want to kick off with a question that I was asked on Twitter that I'm going to answer right now. But before I do that, be sure to check out the Mystery Island crew on Facebook. I do this every week. Mystery Island crew on Facebook and Twitter and their websites as well. All the links to that, whether you're on SoundCloud or YouTube, will be in the description below. Check them out to see who's coming to the shows or who's coming to their shop. 56 to 58 Oxton Road in Birkenhead in Liverpool, Merseyside. So be sure to check them out as well. I can't promote them enough. They've had Jimmy Havoc there. They've had Chris Masters there. Who knows who they're going to have next. Now, also check out the crew, Swerve Talk Network, Max Wrestling Podcast with Daz, the lead honcho, and Craig Phoenix and co. Also check out my boy, Sunday Segway, Kenny Killer, as well. Kenny, I want one of them shirts, pal, so hook me up, hook a brother up. Also check out Evan McCabe's podcast as well, when he can get back on as well, because like I say, he's still injured. I haven't talked to the guy yet, so he's still out with an illness. I haven't talked to the guy yet. I don't know if he's back doing his podcasts, but last time I talked to him, he was ill. He said, and he hadn't been on the podcasting crew, if you will, for a while. Also check out Offshoot Radio, led by my boy, the one and only Mr. Too Sweet himself, James Belmont, as well. Be sure to check everybody out. And yes, James Belmont, as well as Roxy, and my arch nemesis, Mr. TNA himself, Mike Rodriguez. All of them beautiful people are there each and every week on the Swerve Top Network for your listening pleasure. Why? Because they are the elite of podcasting. Now I've got all that promotion out the way, guys. It's time for a question that was brought to me on Twitter by @WrestlingExpress, and he asked me straight up on Twitter that I wanted to get involved in this in a poll that they were doing, and I said, yeah, shoot. And the question was, because I got the fan interaction thing they were doing on their site, and I answered him back, and he said, awesome. The question is, will wrestling ever be respected by the mainstream media? And I wrote back saying, yeah, I believe it can be, but only if it is created right, i.e. creative booking, and that. But for it to be respected by the mainstream media, they have to drop the PG thing, especially in WWE. Yeah, I think WWE is not respected by the mainstream media that much, or not much they think, because of one thing, the PG era. They have to drop the PG era. It's as simple as that, or go more ruthless. Now, I can understand, I've said this many times before, I can understand why they've gone to where they've gone in terms of PG, because, you know, it's a family show. They want to go back to family orientated. They were like this in the 80s or late 80s, early 90s. And I can understand why they've done that, because when it comes to merchandise, who's going to buy your merchandise? Who's the first main people who are going to buy your merchandise? Children, okay? It's as simple as that. Children are going to buy the merchandise. You know, it's a hands-on thing. It's a foregone conclusion. Children are going to buy your merchandise. Simple as that. Why? And how the hell do I know? Because hell, once upon a time, I used to do the damn thing myself. Adults nowadays and people like myself nowadays, PG era can be good, but we want attitude. We want maybe a colourful language here and there. We want maybe to push the envelope. Not necessarily saying too much like they used to back in the day with WCW was on their asses, but maybe push the envelope here and there. That's what we want, and there's all this change and going around with the possible brand split and rumours flying around like John Cena's trying to get people, trying to convince them to go in that direction, to go PG era, go in that direction, maybe cut out a cuss word here and there and that kind of stuff. That's what I've heard anyway. Whether it's true or not, I don't know. But yeah, that's what we want. That's what we want it to go back to, that kind of era. Because PG era, mainstream media can't take WWE seriously when it's in PG era. Because at the end of the day, it's 2016. It's not, the fucking, it's not the 1980s anymore, the early 90s. It's 2016. They want something new. They want something different. They don't want the same lame-ass stuff that you see, like John Cena being shoved down our throat. They want different. They want wrestling. They want attitude. They want to be entertained. And some of the stuff, I'll admit right now, although these past couple of Raws that I've seen since WrestleMania have improved, I will admit that. But they want it to go back, not necessarily saying create the old Attitude Era, but even Triple H came on a dirt sheet once and admitted that he doesn't know what the fuck's going on with WWE. He thinks WWE's fucked up and they're doing their best to fix it, The only way you could fix it and get it to be respected again by the mainstream media is dropping the PG era. You've got to drop the PG era. It's as simple as that. You've got all these other promotions. I'll take TNA, for example. They're doing TV-14. And the only way you get to see TV-14 in the WWE is either on the network or in a friggin' DVD that they sell. The PG era family-oriented entertainment has to go. If WWE, and I say WWE because I would think the professional wrestling out there is respected by the mainstream media, like the ICWs and stuff like that, but they've got to be more ruthless and push the envelope. But the main thing they have to do, WWE in particular, if they want to be respected by the mainstream media, I'm not saying they're not respected by the mainstream media, they may be, I don't know, but for wrestling in general to ever be respected, especially WWE, for them to ever be respected in the mainstream media, and for wrestling to ever be respected in the mainstream media, the PG era has to go, and go quick, And for that as well, the booking has got to change as well. Like I said on the answer there when I answered him back, creative booking. Because some of the storylines I see on Raw, and some of the stuff that's going on Raw, don't get me wrong, there's good storylines and there's bad storylines, but my eyes are watching wrestling, there has been some fucking diabolical ones. And I can give you a list, but we'd be here for all the podcasts, trust me. No doubt War Culture will probably do a top 10 of that, or probably have done a top 10 of that. I mean, there has been some diabolical storylines. I mean, fucking Kaylee Vick back in the day, where else can I start with that? Kaylee Vick, the fucking Triple H, fucking a mannequin in a coffin, for Pete's sake. Anything to get a world title match, Jesus Christ. But, there's a lot of storylines back in the day that have been diabolical. There has been some good, there has been some bad. But they want, for it to be respected, the creative booking has to be about wrestling in general. Yeah, you can incorporate TV shows in there and shit like that. That's okay. Whatever works, whatever helps the angle. But you can't do it, cartoony. You can't do it. You have to make it look as real as it can be for people to get it. The same with the characters as well. If you're going to do a character, fine, do one. But make sure it relates to that person. Because if you do a character, if someone gets into a character, if you give a wrestler a character nowadays, that's basically not them at all, but you say you have to do this, A, B, and C, and all that shit, they're not going to get over. The crowd this is just my take in general, guys. I'm not saying I am a wrestling historian, or I am a wrestling historian, but I'm not saying I'm a wrestling know-it-all when it comes to booking, but this is just my take on it. For a person to get over in wrestling, they have to, create their own path. Roman Reigns gets booked. Roman Reigns is a guy now who's been built as John Cena 2.0. But if he was still a member of the Shield, or he was still the guy who broke away from the Shield, he'd be over as a motherfucker. Because they got that person, but now they've created this John Cena-like character out of him, and he's not over like a heartbeat. People don't want that, At the end of the day, like I said, the reason why John Cena gets booed out the fucking building is because he's been built to a modern-day Hulk Hogan. And I'm not talking about the modern-day Hulk Hogan Hogan from the NWO. I'm talking about the modern day Hulk Hogan who was running the 80s. You know, the real American NWO Hulk Hogan and that shit. That's what he's been built to. People don't want that, you know. People want somebody to get a character who can relate to that person. Basically, what I'm saying is, the fans want people to be themselves. Create a character that, as long as it's a creation of yourself, because people want them to be yourself. That's what people can be when they get over. Be yourself. I mean, AJ Styles is himself. Samoa Joe is himself. Finn Balor is still Prince Devitt, but it's himself. That's why people can get over. And not only that, they're themselves, they're so fucking talented, it's unbelievable. That's what wrestling needs to be. But to put a bottom line on this, like I did on Twitter, for wrestling to be respected, it has to drop the PG era. All other wrestling promotions outside WWE are respected because they don't fall down that bullshit kind of, you know, family-orientated crap. They don't shove things down their throat. They focus on what the damn fucking business is. Sports entertainment, my ass. It's wrestling. And that's what I promote on this podcast. Wrestling. Not sports entertainment. Wrestling. Because it's all about the fucking wrestling. Sports entertainment this, sports entertainment that. Fuck it. It's wrestling at the end of the day. And that's what this fucking podcast is about. That's what the whole business is about. That's what ICW is about. That's what Progress Wrestling is about. Them promotions. That's what PCW is about. All these other British promotions. And even the indies as well, you know. Ring of Honor and that. It's all about the wrestling. TNA is about the wrestling, but there's a few other bullshits about it, but I'll save that for another day. WWE, the only thing wrestling about WWE at the moment is NXT. Raw and Smackdown should be in that same category, but they're not. Although, like I say, from WrestleMania, they're gaining that way. And thank God, Shane's back. That's all I'm saying on that. Wrestling, WWE needs to change. The PG era has to go. PG has to go away from wrestling for wrestling to be taken seriously or to be respected by the mainstream media like it used to be back in the day. If it can't, wrestling will never be respected with the PG era in. And that's WWE because they've got a merchandise deal with figures. That's all fine and good, like I say. Merchandise, kids are going to buy the merchandise straight away. But wrestling needs to be respected again, and it should be respected again. And for it to be respected again by the mainstream media, it has to get rid of the PG shit. Once the PG era and the PG stuff is gone, who knows? It'll be respected again. It might not. This is just my opinion, guys. We don't know. But like I said, it was very much respected back in the day, in the Attitude Era, in WWE. You know, being on news bulletins and that. Hell, being in the back of an evening news gazette that I got one time when it had a picture of Mike Tyson and Shawn Michaels at WrestleMania 14. That kind of respected. And like I said, the only way it can be, the PG era has to go. Like it said on the NXT show, fuck PG. And that about wraps that up. So I'll be back in part 2. Hope that all made sense to you, by the way. And I'll be back in part 2 with the Raw review audio. So stay tuned. If you like the Wrestling Matters podcast, why not check out their Facebook page at facebook.com/WMPodcast and like the page and show your support to the podcast that stands up for professional wrestling, the Wrestling Matters podcast. Wrestling Matters, wrestling fans.
There's only one wrestling podcast that gives you honest, uncut opinions and the most unique trivia since WWE did The Weakest Link. And the only place you can hear the show-stealing podcast promo every single week.
Covering WWE, TNA, Ring of Honor, Lucha Underground. Matt's Wrestling Podcast is the place for you. Join myself, Evan Money McCabe, the Phoenix, and the Butcher. Sundays at 7 p.m. UK time, 2 p.m. Eastern time with your host, Danny Dangerously, on VOC Nation and the Swerve Talk Network.
Go to maxwrestling.wix.com/maxwrestling or follow us at maxwrestlinguk for more details.
Give in to the madness.
Yo, what's going on, ladies and gentlemen? Welcome to another Raw review. You're probably wondering what the hell am I doing right now. I'm still on the high from what happened on Saturday, ladies and gents. That's right. In case you didn't see it, all the links will be in the description below on my vlog that I did. A little vlog that I did. All the link will be in the description below. My team are in the Premier League now. Team that I work for. Many of you people may know me or whatever. I am a steward at Middlesbrough Football Club. And on Saturday, May 7th, I had the best day I've ever had as a steward at Middlesbrough Football Club. So, I'm still on the high on that one. You'll have to bear with me. But as we all know, ladies and gentlemen, this is the Raw review. That's right. Raw review took place. Well, the Monday Night Raw took place. I should say Raw review took place. What the fuck? Monday Night Raw took place on May 9th of this year. That's right. May 9th, 2016. And it was a very intriguing Raw, too, if you ask me. If you're seeing this right now and you're seeing any issues or anything, I do apologize. If there's any issues or anything like that, I'm doing the best I can. This is a live recording, if you will. So if there's any issues right now, I do apologize right now. I'm doing the best I can at the moment with what I've got to work with. So let's get right into it. A very intriguing Raw. It was okay. It wasn't the worst Raw I've seen. Trust me, I've seen worse. But it was strangely booked in a way, and I'll tell you the reason why. The headline match was Roman Reigns, Usos versus the now club AJ Styles, Kyle Anderson, and Doc Gallows, or Luke Gallows, whatever he's calling himself now. That was not the main event. The main event was Big Cass and Chris Jericho, and that match didn't even take place because Dean Ambrose got involved. Now, I'll get to them two first. Get the main parts out the way. It was announced over the weekend via Twitter, I'm guessing, from what I remember, that the club were back together. And they're now calling themselves the club. They're missing one member, and he's still on NXT, apparently. Hopefully, he'll be up very, very soon. And, they got into an elimination match with the same three men that they've been feuding with the past 2 weeks on Raw and SmackDown, or the past week or so on Raw and SmackDown. But this one was an elimination match, and the club had the advantage because they got rid of the Usos, and then Reigns got rid of Gallows and Carl Anderson, and it came down to one-on-one. But the fight brew outside. Obviously, AJ wanted revenge for what happened last week when he got powerbombed through the table. But Anderson and Gallows stopped that from happening again, because it was about to happen again if it wasn't for Carl Anderson and Doc Gallows hitting Reigns with the chair, and all hell broke loose. Interesting what's going to happen at Extreme Rules next week, a week Sunday. Very interesting, considering the way this has been built up, and it's an Extreme Rules match. So basically, it's going to be a no DQ match, just like it turned out to be at the Payback pay-per-view. So, with that being said, that wasn't the way that ended Raw. The way that ended Raw was Big Cass and Chris Jericho. Okay? Big Cass, Chris Jericho. All this started from the highlight reel. Big Cass basically humiliated Chris Jericho on the highlight reel, and it was scheduled for a match with him later on. But as Chris came out and did the entrance, his traditional entrance, he got attacked by somebody. And when the guy came down, stood on the apron with the jacket on, it was revealed it was Dean Ambrose. And Dean Ambrose proceeded to destroy the coat. But not only did he destroy the coat, he beat up Chris Jericho here and there as well. Cass got involved. Ambrose hits Dirty D's and proceeds to rip the coat apart, costing Jericho $15,000. I can't imagine that match being other than an Extreme Rules match at Extreme Rules. But it's not over yet between Ambrose and Jericho, that I can assure you. The other matches that took place were Baron Corbin defeating Chris Jericho, defeating Dolph Ziggler. Sorry, I had Jericho on the man there. Defeating Dolph Ziggler, getting a little bit of payback for what happened on the Battle Royal last week to determine the number one contender championship. Rusev will meet Kalisto at Extreme Rules. More on that later. $5 say he'll be on the pre-show. R-Truth beat Fandango And this Thursday night on SmackDown, it's going to be Goldango against Gorgeous Truth. And if any of you guys are watching this right now pulling your hair out, I don't blame you. I've got no hair to pull. Only a little bit. But a little bit-ish anyway. But I hate this angle, I do, honest. Whatever this angle is. And what the hell was Truth wearing? That hair locks. Oh, God. Less said about this, the better. Ric Flair got banned from ringside during Charlotte's match with Paige. Although Natalya was at ringside. Ric Flair came down to ringside, didn't take too kindly to it. Shane came out, escorted him out the building. While that was taking place, Charlotte got beat. Question is, will she get beaten? That submission match at Extreme Rules, because that's what's going to be. Submission match. Natalya, Charlotte, Extreme Rules for the women's title. No Ric Flair, though. Thank God. A little confrontation backstage with Shane and Stephanie involving Cesaro, Miz, and Kevin Owens turned into what I predicted, ladies and gentlemen. What I said was going to happen. A possible fatal four-way match. But it was they made a triple threat match first. And then Sammy came in and says, if you let me wrestle Miz and I beat Miz, you make this a fatal four-way. Which he did. And he got the victory. So, like I predicted, ladies and gentlemen, it is now a fatal four-way at Extreme Rules. Miz, Kevin Owens, Cesaro, Sami Zayn for the Intercontinental Championship. Just like I predicted, guys. Apologies for my phone there. But like I said, just like I predicted, it was going to be. And hopefully Sami will win that match, if not Cesaro, to be honest. Dana Brooke made a debut on Raw. Emma confronted Becky Lynch backstage, and she got a little help from Dana. So, this new era of new opportunity, is really kicking in because Dana's now on Raw. No doubt she'll probably still be on NXT here and there, but she's getting a debut. She's getting a break. Build up to the US Championship match. Saw Rusev lose to Sin Cara thanks to a little bit of help from, I'm guessing, Kalisto, but Sin Cara managed to get the victory, shocking Rusev in the process. Question is, will Kalisto get the victory at Extreme Rules? Because it's going to be Kalisto against Rusev at Extreme Rules, like I say, for the US Championship. Granted, it's not on the pre-show. So, like I said, can Kalisto beat him? It seems that they're going back to the old Rusev. With Lana coming out and, all right, he's not the Russian brute anymore. He doesn't sympathize Russia or anything like that like he used to. He's just a Bulgarian brute with his bride-to-be Lana. And it seems they're going back that way with him. It seems. Will they fully go that way? I don't know if they're fully going that way yet. Losing to Sin Cara doesn't help matters. But, yeah, it's interesting to see where they go with that. Zack Ryder got beat by Kevin Owens. This was because Zack Ryder wanted an opportunity, basically went to Shane McMahon looking for an opportunity to get back into the Intercontinental Championship picture. Kevin Owens came in running his mouth off, and Shane booked a match between Kevin Owens, Zack Ryder, which Kevin Owens beat and is still in the Fatal 4-Way. Thank God. I'm nothing on Zack, but you can't take Kevin Owens out of that. Don't get me wrong, Zack deserves an Intercontinental Championship match. There's not this way. Dudley's defeated the new champs, New Day, the tag team champions, New Day, I should say. I got that mixed up there. Dudley's beat New Day thanks to a little help from the Vaudevillains. The Vaudevillains come down and send a message to New Day for their tag team title match at Extreme Rules. Granted, it's not on the pre-show. Wouldn't surprise me, though. And then it was Dean Ambrose and Chris Jericho situation. So like I said, very intriguing Raw. And the reason why I say it was intriguing because, don't get me wrong, Dean Ambrose, Chris Jericho situation, Big Cass. I would have loved to have seen Big Cass get an opportunity in the main event. But it just didn't make sense to put that in the main event spot to close out the show. It was a good segment. But what they should have done was put the 6-man in there. Yeah, granted, they've had 6-man main events basically for the past week. Raw and SmackDown. They built it up on SmackDown. It wasn't scheduled to be on SmackDown, but they built it up towards, the Usos and Carl Anderson and Doc Gallows getting a no contest, and then it changed into a 6-man. And then they did it again. Next time it was elimination now. So I would have put that as the main event. And I would have probably put the Chris Jericho Big Cass in. I don't know if I would have put it in that spot. I would have put it before it. That's what I would have done it. It just didn't look right. A big 6-man main event, 6-man elimination main event in that position. It just didn't look right. It just didn't make sense. All in all, it was a good Raw. I thought it was okay. And I'll give it a 6 out of 5. That's the best I can do on that one. 6 out of 10, rather. Sorry, and 3 out of 5 on that one. It's getting good, right? It's getting really interesting. It was just, I would have had the 6-man in the main event spot instead of the Dean Ambrose situation. Although it was fun to see Dean Ambrose, it's always fun to see Dean Ambrose raise hell and get one over on Jericho because Jericho thought he wasn't coming. Boom, he does that in a very intriguing way, though. Costing Jericho basically $15K for that. I'm guessing now Jericho will have to come out on his entrance now without that jacket. That's just my take on that one. I don't know. He might go out and get another one, probably. But, I think Raw was the end of the lights coat that Jericho has. I might be wrong. We'll have to wait and see. But all in all, 6 out of 10, 3 out of 5 in terms of ratings. And if you didn't see this video, guys, don't worry. It's going up on the channel. So, and the audio will be played on episode 111 of the Wrestling Matters podcast, which comes up this weekend. And I will go into details about a question that I got asked during the week on Twitter by somebody. So, it's about, will wrestling ever be respected? So look out for that. I'll answer that this coming week on the podcast. Check out all the stuff on the Wrestling Matters channel for weekly podcasts, weekly reviews like this as well, and other stuff as well. All to do with the world of professional wrestling. Be sure to subscribe to the channel because that's the only way you get to keep up to date with everything that goes on the channel. Also, check out my games channel as well. I've done a little series celebrating the fact that Kurt Angle is going to ICW. That's right. You heard me correct. Kurt Angle will wrestle in ICW on November 20th at Fear and Loathing. I can't believe I just said that sentence. But I did a little series on my games channel, which kicked off yesterday, in celebration of that as well. So give you some ideas of who he could wrestle in there. It's all on WWE 2K16 as well. So be sure to check that out as well in the description below. Also, check out my vlog as well on the Borough. Yes. Like I said, I'm still on a high from it. My boys, my team is back where they belong after 7 years away. And I'm still on a high from it. It was the greatest day ever. Best day I've had in going on 4 years as a steward. And subscribe to my games channel, subscribe to this, like, share, subscribe. If you for more information, go to my Facebook page, facebook.com/WMPodcast. Like, share, subscribe on the games channel as well, facebook.com/Games Matter channel, at WMPodcast on Twitter, at Tony_Walker as well. Be sure to check all that out. That's the WM podcast. It's for the podcast as well. So just to clarify that. You want to ask me questions, you want to hang out, you want to talk to me, feel free to do so. And with that being said, guys, that about wraps it up for this video. Hope you guys have enjoyed it. Like I said, like, share, and subscribe. It'll be greatly appreciated. And until next time, guys, peace out.
Be sure to listen to the Sunday Segway Wrestling Podcast.
What?
Every Sunday with Kenny Killer and the Galdem Sugar Shugs.
Yes! Yes!
With all the news, views, and laughter that you want.
They like jet airplanes. They like long limousines.
Every Sunday, the Sunday Segway Wrestling Podcast on Podomatic, iTunes, and YouTube.
So why don't you choke on that, slap nut?
There's only one wrestling podcast that gives you honest, uncut opinions and the most unique trivia since WWE did The Weakest Link. And the only place you can hear the show-stealing podcast promo every single week.
Covering WWE, TNA, Ring of Honor, Lucha Underground. Max Wrestling Podcast is the place for you. Join myself, Evan Money McCabe, the Phoenix, and the Butcher. Sundays at 7 PM UK time, 2 PM Eastern time with your host, Daddy Dangerously, on VOC Nation and the Swerve Talk Network.
Go to maxwrestling.wix.com/maxwrestling or follow us at maxwrestlinguk for more details.
Give in to the madness.
What's happening, everybody? Welcome back to the Wrestling Matters podcast. Hope you enjoyed the Raw audio there, the Raw review audio there, plus a few other things as well. And yeah, we're going to get right into Smackdown and NXT. But before we do that, I just want to give a quick mention to something. There's a video going around on YouTube, WWE's YouTube channel. 6 wrestlers that didn't make it or should have went to WWE. Now, 5 of them I could probably agree with, okay? Even though a majority of them were from the past and everything. Magnum TA was one of them, and I can probably understand that as well. He never got the opportunity, but his motorcycle crash that he got put an end to that fiasco, or that dream, if you will. But there was one person on there that made me laugh, and I will put the link to the video in the description below. But this is just me shooting with you guys like I always do, or I always aim to do on this podcast. Somebody must have been on fucking drugs creating that video at the WWE's HQ or whatever the fuck they create their videos. Somebody must have been on fucking drugs. The rest of them I could probably understand, but the one guy in particular was New Jack, and they've got a fucking thumbnail on there, Roman Reigns and New Jack thumbnail, and I think I swear underneath it says Roman Reigns versus New Jack. Like I say, somebody must have been on fucking drugs when they made that video, man, for real. Somebody must have been high or out their fucking mind. Oh yeah, we'll just create a video today. So many guys that didn't go into the WWE that should have went to WWE, New Jack being in particular. Now, I agree with what they said on the video about New Jack. He would have been a perfect fit for the Attitude Era, back in the days when they were doing hardcore wrestling and hardcore title matches and everything. He'd been a perfect fit. But what WWE obviously didn't know, or obviously didn't seem to care, right? Obviously didn't seem to care, is the fact that, New Jack has been very vocal about WWE. If you don't believe me, I have on one of my hard drives a shoot interview that he did with Honky Tonk Man and the Iron Sheik when he lays into the drug policy in WWE and the Chris Benoit incident as well. He laid into WWE, and not just WWE, and not just laying into WWE in general about that. There was a few other stuff as well with the old ECW thing and everything and all that as well. He has been very vocal about that in the past. And I swear, whoever made that video, I think they should consider themselves lucky they're still on the job, man. Because I'm sure Vince is aware of, not that he probably cared or give the damn, but I'm sure Vince is aware of New Jack's, vocality towards him. I think I just made a word up there, but anyway, I'll go with it. His bad vocalness towards WWE. I'm sure Vince is aware of that, and I'm pretty sure Triple H is as well. Not that they care about it, or not they will care about it, but it just makes me laugh that they even created that. And then I think they've got this whole idea about having New Jack versus Roman Reigns. New Jack would probably kill Roman Reigns. This is the same guy that stabbed the fucking promoter, okay? Nearly killed a kid for playing a wrestler who filled in for a professional wrestler wrestler one time in a tag team match, which nearly cost them their pay-per-view, ECW, you know, the mass transit incident. It just makes me laugh. It really does. And like I say, guys, if you haven't seen the video, I'll drop the link in the description on YouTube and SoundCloud, and I'll show it on my websites as well. Check out my website. All the links to everything will be in the description, whether you're seeing this on YouTube or listening to this on YouTube or seeing this on SoundCloud as well. Check everything in the description below. Please check it all out. It is unbelievable. Now, we'll go into the main topic, which is Smackdown and NXT. Now, Smackdown had Jericho dishing out a little bit of revenge for Dean Ambrose after what happened on Raw. Puts him in a straight jacket and makes an idiot out of him, you know. A little bit of payback for Ambrose wrecking his jacket on Raw. Rusev defeats Sin Cara. Dana Brooke makes her Smackdown debut and beats Becky Lynch, probably with a little help from Emma. Aiden English defeats Kofi Kingston. A little bit of momentum there going into their title match at Extreme Rules. Usos again against Carl Anderson and Doc Gallows, or Luke Gallows, the Club. Usos beaten them by DQ. I can't believe I'm saying this. Gorgeous Truth manages to defeat Goldango. I'll move on. And Kevin Owens and The Miz defeat Cesaro and Sami Zayn. Now, tag match. Now, I'll go to the main event. If I can find it. I'll read what happened out. I'm not even going to bother with the freaking Goldango Gorgeous Truth bullshit. Jesus Christ. In the height of SmackDown's fast-paced main event, the kick from Sami Zayn missed its intended target and accidentally caught his tag team partner, Cesaro. After The Miz sees the opportunity to get Sami Zayn out of the ring, Kevin Owens delivers a frog splash on the fallen Swiss Superman for the victory. And then all hell breaks loose after that. So it's all building up to that fatal four-way match at Extreme Rules, guys, for the Intercontinental Championship. Kevin Owens wants his title back. Sami Zayn just wants the Intercontinental Championship because that's what the fans want. Cesaro wants to be Intercontinental Champion, and Miz just wants to be Intercontinental Champion because he can. We'll find out what happens at Extreme Rules. All I hope for is the Miz doesn't win, because he didn't deserve it in the first place, to be honest with you. The fucking pissed all over what's his name? Zack Ryder. Poor bastard. On to NXT, and the rematch is set for TakeOver. Finn Balor, Samoa Joe. It's been set. The matches on there were the American Alpha, the NXT Tag Team Champions, defeat John Skyler and Corey Hollis in a non-title match. Shinsuke Nakamura defeats Alex Riley in what was Alex Riley's last appearance. Alexia Bliss defeats Rachel Ellering. I wonder if it's any relation to Paul. Anyway, Finn Balor defeats Elias Sampson, and as it's headlined all over, he gets his rematch at TakeOver show as they go one-on-one, Finn Balor and Samoa Joe. Well, just turned into the fucking goofball that wrote that on the TakeOver match between the two. Jesus Christ. Anyway, and that about wraps it up for this part, ladies and gentlemen. And I'll be back right after this quick timeout with Ring of Honor, I hope, ICW, and TNA. So stay tuned. If you like the Wrestling Matters Podcast, why not follow the Wrestling Matters Podcast now on Twitter at WMPodcast for all professional wrestling news. Wrestling Matters, wrestling fans. Welcome back, ladies and gentlemen, to the Wrestling Matters Podcast. Now, on the side note, guys, I've looked all over for Ring of Honor. I can't find Ring of Honor. I go onto their website. It's still the Bullet Club hour from last week. So I don't know what's going down on that one, and I really cannot find Ring of Honor. So, unfortunately, that'll have to be back next week. Unfortunately. So, for now, I've still got TNA, and I've still got ICW to talk about. So, at least we got something to talk about in that respect. ICW. Where do I begin with this? Jesus Christ. ICW kicks off this week with the Fear and Loathing announcement. And I'll put the video to this in the description below, and I'll put my report on this in the description below on SoundCloud and YouTube and whatever else you're watching this as well. Because, for those of you that don't know, ladies and gentlemen, Red Lightning comes out, runs his mouth off, Kenny Williams comes down and has a memo from Mick Foley, the guy who's going to be running Fear and Loathing this year again. He, on behalf of Kenny Williams, who read it, said that he's not coming alone this time around. He's brought somebody with him to wrestle. Kurt Angle. That's right, you heard me correct, ladies and gentlemen. Kurt Angle in ICW. Link in the description below. On YouTube or SoundCloud, or wherever you listen to this, check it out. Check out the video. It is in the description below of the announcement that Kurt Angle is going to be wrestling on Fear and Loathing in November, rather. I think it's November 20th, 2016. Kurt Angle in ICW. We never thought that. But match-wise, Kenny Kenny Williams went one-on-one with Wolfgang, and Wolfgang managed to get the victory as well. That led to Lionheart coming out and trying to cause havoc with him and Kenny Williams. But he had to defend the Zero G title against Jack Gibson? Zach Gibson. Where the fuck did I get Jack Gibson from? For fuck's sake. Liverpool's number one, Zach Gibson, ladies and gentlemen. And Lionheart managed to get the victory out of that as well. Then the 55 and the New Nation in this ICW Tag Team Title Tournament faced each other, and the 55 advance. These sets some aggro backstage as well. These two went at it backstage a little bit as well. Big Damo was in action against DCT and destroyed him, quite frankly, as well. And Chris Renfrew went one-on-one with Grado in a great match, don't get me wrong, but this match was a little interesting because whoever won became number one contender, and whoever lost would never be able to face the ICW World Champion again, according to Red Lightning at least. God, I hate him. I don't know what the guy's like, the character. Fucking despise him. I'd love to be in ICW just to get right in his face just one time. Ooh, I hate him. But Grado won. He's now the number one contender. And not only did Chris Renfrew lose the match and not be able to face the ICW World Heavyweight Champion again, he is no longer in ICW because he got fired from Red Lightning. So it is what it is, ladies and gents. And that about wraps that up. It is free on the ICW On Demand service. ICWOndemand.pivtrushare. I don't even know what that says. I apologize if I pronounced that wrong. .com as well. Just go on insanewrestling.co.uk. You'll get the info on there. All the links will be in the description below. Be sure to check all of that out. Now, ICW, TNA this week. The Impact results, which were from, if I could find this, May 10th of this year. That's right. May 10th of this year, which saw the feud between Bobby Lashley and Drew Galloway heat up a little bit. EC3 went one-on-one with Spud in a 6 Sides of Steel, and much, much more. Decay had their feud with Jeff Hardy, and also Three Willows attacked Jeff Hardy as well. Why, I don't know, but anyway. The match that kicked off was the TNA World Tag Team titles. The Decay with Rosemary versus the Charismatic Storm, as they're now known, because Bobby Roode is not in TNA anymore. So the Charismatic Storm, which is James Storm and Jeff Hardy, for the tag team titles. But the Decay managed to get the victory via a Black Hole Slam from Abyss. That was probably because Willows attacked Jeff Hardy, and Jeff Hardy vowed to get to the bottom of the fact to find out who is behind this Willow. The Chosen One, Drew Galloway, TNA World Heavyweight Championship versus Eli Drake, the guy who's the number one contender for the King of the Mountain title. Winner and still champion thanks to a Future Shock DDT is Drew Galloway. Yes, and Drew Galloway managed to beat him fair and square. And then, obviously, after the match, Lashley comes out and adds more fuel to the fire on their feud as well. Jade versus Gail Kim in what was probably Gail Kim's rematch. Jade wins by DQ. Lots of interferences in that one. Al Snow against Mahalabi Shira. A very pissed off Al Snow ends up losing, who calls himself the Donald Trump of wrestling now. Thanks to Grado getting a little bit of revenge for what happened a couple of weeks ago when he broke his arm. Al Snow, that is. Shira got the victory, and I'm glad about that because I don't know what the fuck Al Snow's problem is. But anyway, the main event, 6 Sides of Steel, EC3 versus Rockstar Spud, and EC3 manages to get the victory with the 1%. So, that about wraps up the TNA and ICW review. Ring of Honor will be back next week, guys. I apologize for that. I can't find it. I've said high and low. If there's anybody that's listening to this that can find me links where I can watch Ring of Honor and stuff like that, better links than what I've already got, please send me them on Twitter or even Facebook me, whatever. Please do that, okay? But Ring of Honor will be back next week. I think they're still covering from the fact that actually I can't talk about Ring of Honor, to be honest with you, because they're still recovering from Global Wars, because I managed to see Global Wars this week. I'll talk about Ring of Honor actually. And for those of you that don't know, the Bullet Club have got a new member. I guess you could say now it is Bullet Club, baby. That's right, Adam Cole is now the new member of the Bullet Club. And I saw it this week. During the match that Colt Cabana and Jay Lethal for the world title, they managed to destroy everybody, and it was super kicks all round. They super kicked. I think Young Bucks' father even got a super kick from the Young Bucks, which was hilarious. But Adam Cole, they super kicked everybody. They super kicked the hell out of Jay Lethal and Colt Cabana. God knows how many times. I lost count after 10. But what was even more fascinating and more great and made me even more laugh, and I don't care what anyone says, is they managed to super kick Kevin Kelly and Steve, Mr. Wrestling 3, Corino, which was fucking great. Now, I've got no issue with Steve Corino. Like Darren Dyer said on Thingy, saying I'm a BJ Whitmer fan. I know he said that, I know it was all good banter, Darren. But I don't like this angle that they've got. Steve Corino is supposed to be suspended. And apparently, from what I've heard, somewhere down the road, there's going to be a fight without honor match. Steve Corino's going to get his match with BJ Whitmer. Sooner the better, because I don't like it. It's an insult to everybody. I mean, they could have hired somebody to come in and fill in that spot, like Nigel McGuinness maybe, or, I mean, it's not the first time he's been at ringside, or they could have got somebody in to come in and fill that spot until Steve Corino was cleared to come back. You know, but instead they got Steve Corino to play this Mr. Wrestling 3 character and have a mask, and it's going around saying that it's not Steve Corino. The fucking voice says it all. Everybody knows it's Steve Corino, and I know it's all a good show and everything, but it's driving me fucking crazy, and I want it to end. Okay, if Steve Corino's going to come back and do color commentary, then get rid of the fucking mask and let him do it, and let him have his match with BJ Whitmer, which I can't wait to see, quite frankly. But Adam Cole is now in the Bullet Club, and like I said, it's Bullet Club, baby. So I'll be back right after this I'll play the part 3 of the Adam Lockhart interview, and then I'll be back after that with 2, not 1, but 2 top 10s from World Culture. Very interesting as well. So, see you in a bit. If you like the Wrestling Matters podcast, why not check out their Facebook page at facebook.com/WMPodcast and like the page and show your support to the podcast that stands up for professional wrestling, the Wrestling Matters podcast. Wrestling Matters, wrestling fans. Do you manage to watch the product nowadays? Not just like WWE. Do you happen to watch, companies like TNA, Ring of Honor, PWG, stuff like that?
Yeah, I try to keep up with everything. WWE is one I definitely I always know what's going on. Sometimes I fall weeks behind what's going on within, as you mentioned, Ring of Honor, PWG. PWG not as much, to be honest, but when it comes to Ring of Honor and TNA and WWE in general, if I don't get to catch a full show because I'm rather working on the road or I'm at the gym or something, I watch the highlights on YouTube. That's where I usually catch a lot of the results. And usually when there's a pay-per-view, I try to take time out and watch the full length of that. I did watch the full everything last week, or 2 weeks ago for SummerSlam week, with the TakeOver and the Hall of Fame and WrestleMania, even it being 7-hour show. Yeah, I watched it all. I enjoyed it all. I made time out for it. Yeah. If you quiz me on everything going on in all those promotions, I might not get 100% on it, but I'm pretty up to date what's going on. Yeah. Nowadays.
I'll get to the TNA. I want to ask your opinion about TNA and the status it's now at from where it used to be. I'll get to that in a second though. You talk about WrestleMania. I streamed from 12 midnight UK time till about 5 o'clock in the morning UK time. And I swear to you, WrestleMania 32 felt like it went on forever. It was the biggest WrestleMania and longest WrestleMania. It felt like it went on. To be honest, it felt like it went on for 2 days. And by the main event, I was done. Everything else that went on before it was good. The Hell in the Cell match with The Undertaker and Shane McMahon, when Shane almost killed himself, was good. And I swear that bump was more worse than Mick Foley's bump that he took in '98 at King of the Ring. But holy shit. And then like you said, by the main event, I was probably done. By then, I wanted to go to bed, and no offense, but the main event of that WrestleMania was not that good for me. It was completely dull, boring, and I mean, it's not a knock on Triple H or anything, but it was dull, it was boring, and it was pretty much predictable, to be honest, because we all knew Roman Reigns was going to win it anyway. Anyone with a brain or a wrestling fan could see that. But going back to TNA, what is your opinion on the status of what TNA has become? Because when they first appeared in 2002, they were, going out with weekly pay-per-views. They're going with weekly pay-per-views. They're going with, once a week pay-per-views from the Asylum in Nashville. And they were busting them out. And then they eventually got their break and went on to Spike TV and started doing these 60-minute shows leading into as well as doing the weekly pay-per-views, and then eventually breaking off the weekly pay-per-views to going into, 3-hour pay-per-views, once a month pay-per-views like we see today with WWE and stuff like that. But considering back then they were busting out 5-star pay-per-views, and they've gone from where they are now to where they were, back then, to where they are now. It's all been, we all know it's been financial problems, but what is your opinion on that? I mean, obviously no one wants to see TNA or any company go bust, but do you think they made a lot of mistakes to go into there? I mean, are you surprised that they're still around to this day? I mean, what's your take on the status of TNA as a fan?
My take on the status of TNA would have to be, I think, back in 2007/2008 when Samoa Joe was a big deal, and they just got Kurt Angle, they just got Booker T, they had both the Hardys coming in, and they had Sting and Main Event Mafia. Like, it was getting a lot of buzz, and it just moved to Spike TV, and I feel like that's where TNA is kind of at right now. Though they have different names there, I feel like they have the potential to have almost that buzz that they had back then. And that was the buzz of just what they were creating on the show. In 2010, when Hogan and Bischoff showed up with Flair and RVD, that was cool. Like, that was a big deal and all, but that was kind of just WCW 0.2 in my vision. Or 2.0, I should say. But I think TNA has a big advantage with them right now, just with the amount of talent they have. Like, all those guys, they bust their butt. And I unfortunately don't get to watch every episode, but you can't tell me that none of those guys can't be on a high scale at like WWE or NXT or Japan or any other promotion. Even if the office has trouble with financial decisions or whatever it is, the wrestling that's produced in the ring in front of that crowd is amazing. Like, every single clip I see of TNA. I think it's kind of underrated. I think people kind of make a joke out of it, and you should make a joke out of it. If you say you're a wrestling fan, you should support any wrestling show busting their butt to stay on TV for us as fans. So I'm a big supporter of TNA, actually.
Yeah. Can I just make a quick side note there, ladies and gentlemen? I made a mistake on the little bit there, that little prig. It was actually Fox Sports they went on to when they broke away from the weekly pay-per-views, and they got their break. They went on to Fox Sports first, and then it was announced they were going on Spike TV, and then the whole Kurt Angle thing started, and hell, even Sting came along for the ride as well. Going back, there was a lot of stuff what you said there, which was correctly true. They did have some buzz, and then the financial problems kicked in. I mean, going back to what they say on the, as far as the talent they have today, I mean, you've got Drew Galloway, you've got, Mike Bennett, you've got EC3, Ethan Carter III, you've got all these great talent and everything. Considering the direction they went, I mean, Spike dropped them because of the ratings. The ratings were poor, and you can understand why they had to do it. It was all business. And then Destination America came along and, quite frankly, screwed them, to be honest with you, in my opinion. Apparently they dropped them because their ratings didn't match the stature of Destination America's ratings. What the fuck that means, I don't know, but anyway. And then along came Pop TV, and it seems, from what I'm hearing, they've got that steady platform now that they were looking for when they left Spike TV. They're not as big as what they used to be, but I'm glad they're still around. But I'm always criticizing them at the point when they do stupid mistakes. I mean, with the financial problems and all this stuff that they let AJ Styles go. That was a few mistakes. They made a few mistakes like letting AJ Styles go and stuff like that, and all the big names that they used to have. I mean, at one point, I think they even told a Porky, at least from what I got on the dirt sheets, I don't know if this is true or not, that they made an over to AJ Styles to bring him back before he ended up going to WWE. I don't believe that. I've never, there's no evidence that I've seen that proves that. To be honest with you, that's just somebody's word against their own. I don't know if that's true or not, but I mean, it's because they had the money. I mean, they should have just let him go. They should have just paid him the money if they were that desperate to keep him in the first place instead of letting him go. And as I'm doing this interview right now, there's also talk now of Wade Barrett, who's unfortunately leaving WWE in June. That's why he got kicked out of the League of Nations this past week, in fact. He unfortunately got kicked out of the League of Nations. Apparently, there's rumours of him going to New Japan Pro Wrestling and joining the Bullet Club. Since I brought it up,
I haven't heard that one.
I was going to say, since I brought it up, what do you think of that? I mean, what do you think of Wade Barrett in general? You're a WWE fan. You watch the product. What do you think of Wade Barrett in general, man? Do you think he's, do you think he should have got a bigger push, a lot more status within the company? Because we all know he's leaving, and he's leaving because of the status in the company. I mean, he didn't, in my opinion, he didn't get a fair shot. This guy was King of the Ring and multi-time Intercontinental Champion, and he never even competed once for the world title, or he never got a world title run, at the most. I mean, there was times he had the angle with him and John Cena and that, when he had the shot at the WWE title with Randy Orton and that, but he never got, in my opinion, he never got what he truly deserved in the company. I mean, what's your take on that?
Oh yeah, definitely. He was because I was actually at that show. I believe it was 2010 in Bragging Rights, where he had his first pay-per-view match against Orton, and like Cena was in his corner or something like that. Yeah. And for that guy being a quote-unquote rookie within WWE, like, he had such good ring presence, and it made sense to me that he was in the main event for like 3 pay-per-views in a row, I think. And then he had his ups and downs. I was also at the other show backstage where he got injured, where I think it was in a battle royal, and someone threw him out, and like he broke his arm or something like that.
Yeah,
or
I
he
remember
caught
that.
someone.
Yeah,
I was like backstage at that show, and just that day, like, he was such a professional. He was such a nice guy to be around. Like, between him and Mike Chioda and Vicky Guerrero, they were like the nicest people to everyone I noticed backstage that day. And then it was unfortunate that he broke his arm later that night, and it seemed like every time he was going to get a shot, kind of like Mr. Kennedy, every time they were going to give him something, he got injured, and that's unfortunate. I think he's very entertaining in everything he does. I can't say anything more positive about him as a performer and just him as a guy backstage in general. Like, really nice guy. Really gracious person backstage, and it's sad too that I'm not going to see him on WWE TV anymore, but hopefully he stays within the wrestling business or within movies so we can still enjoy his accent and just him as a person.
I mean, like I say, he should have got at least a world title run or at least something big out of it. The last major honor you got was the King of the Ring, and that turned into like a gimmick thing. But going on to King of the Ring, I've asked this question many, many times, and I've even answered the question myself many, many times as well. Do you think WWE should bring back the King of the Ring on pay-per-view or even on the network? Yes or no?
Yeah, they should. What they did last spring with the King of the Ring, I liked it. They did like a Tuesday night special. It was cool and all, but I think they should just bring it back as a pay-per-view because it just gives a theme to something. And I remember growing up and watching King of the Ring 2000 live. That's the year when Kurt Angle won it. Yeah. And just how, I mean, my brothers were on the phone with their friends going back and forth who they thought they were going to win, and just all the excitement within the bracket itself and then the other matches they had on that card. That was just an exciting pay-per-view, and same with King of Ring 2001. Like, they had the bracket, they had the King of Ring and everything, but and then they also had great matches like Shane and Kurt Angle. And like the pay-per-view itself was just always a really fun pay-per-view with fun stipulations, such as Money in the Bank.
Yeah.
And TLC.
If you had to drop a pay-per-view to make way for that to come back, King of the Ring, or if you had to drop a pay-per-view, what pay-per-view would you drop if you were in WWE to bring that back, King of the Ring back, and give it its rightful status as a show and what it could be like it used to be when the year when Brock Lesnar won it, and 2 months later he's fighting for the WWE title. If you could drop a pay-per-view, which one would it be? Or would you do what they did with Elimination Chamber last year and just put, even though it was last minute and all, put it on the network and have it like a network show and keep the pay-per-view lineup as it is? What would you do?
Well, yeah, put it as a network show, whatever they have to do, because time restraints don't matter when you're on the network, as we saw with WrestleMania being so long. Which I love, by the way. It didn't faze me. But if King of Ring was in the month of June, I guess put it back in the month of June so it can set up for Money in the Bank. It could set up for SummerSlam. So that means they would have to get rid of, I believe, Battleground is the one in July. Because Battleground's just kind of a prelude for SummerSlam. It's just a build-up.
Yeah, we figured that one. Yeah, we figured that out last year with the old Undertaker and Brock Lesnar situation.
And the year before.
Yeah.
Because I think they did that in 2014. They were building up Cena and Lesnar, and they were building up Rollins and Ambrose, and they were building up whoever else there was at the time. My mind's slipping right now. But yeah, you can get rid of something like Battleground because that's sort of like Fastlane for SummerSlam. And plug in the King of the Ring.
Would you keep the Money in the Bank pay-per-view, or would you drop the Money in the Bank pay-per-view and take the Money in the Bank match and put it back on WrestleMania? Because that was built for WrestleMania. I believe the idea came from Chris Jericho, to put that on as a WrestleMania thing. Something big, like a WrestleMania field match. The winner gets the briefcase, and as you know, they have a year to cash it in. But then somebody came up, let's give it its own pay-per-view. Would you drop the pay-per-view and put it back on WrestleMania?
Well, I heard rumor that they're going to do a split brands again, like they're going to do a draft and have Raw and SmackDown be separate. And if that's true, it was okay when Money in the Bank was around when there's two separate briefcases. But now that they only have just the one gold briefcase, they don't really need it as a pay-per-view. They could put it at WrestleMania. That's not a bad idea. They could stick it back there. So if it's going to be continue like it is, they don't necessarily need a pay-per-view, even though Money in the Bank is a really exciting show to look forward to. But split the brands first if you want to keep it, would be my opinion.
Yeah. It's funny you bring up the brands, actually. The brand rumor that's going around, that they're going to split the brands again. Obviously, the first time they did this, and they did the draft lottery with Ric Flair and Vince McMahon, which is on the network, by the way, guys. You might want to go and check it out if you haven't got the network. The whole draft, the very first draft lottery they did, and then they had the brand extension. They had the Smackdown, and you had your Raw. It worked, and it worked very effectively, and then they decided to bring, to go back to square one again. And now there's this rumor going around that the brand extension's coming back. Do you think the brand extension could work in this era where we are right now in WWE, like PG era? Because when it was back in the other, when they did it in the other era, it was like an attitude era, like a ruthless aggression era, I believe it was called back then. They did it then and it worked a treat. Do you think the draft and the brand extension could work in this PG era that we are living in WWE?
Yeah, I don't see why not. I think anything that they put their mind to could work, no matter what era they're in. And that's just people in general. Anything you put your mind to in life, I think you could do it with the amount of patience and amount of hard work. And within a PG era, doesn't matter. There's just so many guys on the roster right now that if they're just kind of floating around, if they're just set on SmackDown and they're a SmackDown guy, and then they have 30 people that aren't on that show because they're a Raw guy, yeah, they could totally do something big. Because I think somebody like the Social Outcasts, very entertaining. They have a lot of potential. There's just not a lot of, you can't really, I don't know. I guess some people don't take them serious. Like, I see it different, but I think some people don't take them serious because they just they gotta do a quick thing on Raw, and that's it. If they have more time and they're on SmackDown and they build something to the next week on SmackDown and then the next week on SmackDown, it could just help those guys even more. So yeah, go for the brand split.
Yeah, I agree with what you say about the Social Outcasts as well. I can't take them seriously. I mean, go back to what happened on Raw. They had a match, I believe Curtis Axel and Heath Slater had a match with the Usos before Carl Anderson and Doc Gallows came in and beat the crap out of Usos. But they're going into the match, and then they had the match in control and everything, and they went out and did this like cheerleading run around the ring, and then Heath got back in the ring. Miscommunication between him and Curtis Axel, and they end up losing the match. That's why I can't take them seriously. So maybe the brand extension could work for somebody the caliber of, a Social Outcast or whatever. If you were in charge of the brand extension, who would you have? First of all, we'll go to this one. Who would you have as commentators on Raw and SmackDown?
I don't know. I guess just keep them the way it is, because that's funny. I wouldn't even think of like commentators being a first priority. I think they could do a good mix of people. You can keep Michael Cole and Marlo separate because they kind of play the same role, and then JBL and Jerry play the same role as well. So you can keep them separate. I can't think of who the third guy on SmackDown
Byron
is.
Saxton.
Oh,
Byron Saxton.
he does both shows now?
He does both shows, yeah.
Okay. I mean, they could stick Rich Brennan from NXT on there as well.
Who's that, the lead announcer?
Yeah, yep. Like he's a former commentator. He's just doing interviews right now. But yeah, stick him back on the commentary booth. I think he's very talented.
Yeah, I mean, the NXT thing seems to be working out for him, so there's obviously something there from the episodes I've seen with NXT as well. I mean, there's rumours flying around that this brand extension that Shane McMahon's going to run Raw, and Triple H and Stephanie, should they be around, are going to get bumped to SmackDown. Who would you run? Who would you have running Raw? I mean, considering what I've seen from Raw this past 2 weeks at the most, I keep Shane on Raw. But who would you have running SmackDown?
I actually think put Shane on SmackDown, because if they want to start building SmackDown and making it a big deal in people's eyes, they got to put Shane on there, because people actually like Shane and they're going to watch it. People are going to watch Raw regardless, no matter who's on it. But I think people will make more time for SmackDown if they're doing something different on it. Because to the casual fan, if they see Stephanie running SmackDown, they're just going to be like, oh, I don't like Stephanie, and not watch it. So if you want people to watch it, put someone that they like on SmackDown.
Yeah,
for business reasons.
Yeah, I mean, I like, what's his name, Mauro Ranallo, the new lead announcer on SmackDown. I like him. I've admired his work from other ones. He hasn't just done WWE, he's done fights, combat fights as well. And he's great. And WWE, whoever came up with the idea to sign him was on the ball, quite frankly. And he could be a future to replace Michael Cole as well. So should things go all okay. And in terms of SmackDown, I think SmackDown is now an improved show, at least from what I've seen anyway. Yes, it still has its moments of considering being the Raw Part 2, basically. But it's, from what I've seen, I mean, don't get me wrong, it's just the turn of the year. We're only early on in 2016, but at the end of the day, it's focused. I believe it's starting to focus more on wrestling and SmackDown show itself, not just like put highlights of Raw on all the time and highlights of what happened on Raw. All right, they talk about Raw, and you know they're going to do that because it's like I say, it's a SmackDown show. Raw was on the previous day or previous 3 days, so you know they're going to talk about Raw, but you know it's not like more focused on Raw. Because when I watch SmackDown, they usually put, I think over here on the UK anyway, I don't know if it's just Sky Sports thing or whatever, but when I put them on SmackDown, they usually you know, put highlights of what happened on Raw, or put a match on from Raw or something like that. I don't know if that's just, you know, being in the UK or anything. I don't know if they do that in America or anything like that. But yeah, they need to focus more on the SmackDown show itself and wrestling, or the matches on that show as well, instead of just focus, you know, on Raw. Like I said, they're going to talk about Raw anyway, but don't make it all about, you know, it being a Raw 2.0 or Raw Part 2, you know, break away. So maybe the brand extension is what's needed, but so it could be its own show. Like I said, what I like to see as well is have them be its own show. I mean, you know, Raw be Raw show and SmackDown be SmackDown show. Yes, talk about them, promote them, you know, put them over, you know, and build matches from them shows towards the pay-per-view. But NXT's doing well, and that's been its own brand, and the main roster doesn't acknowledge that as much as they should. So if it can work for NXT, why not it work for them? Mm-hmm. That's my take on that. Do you happen to watch, besides, you know, the Ring of Honors of the world, have you come across anything from the UK in terms of the indie wrestling, like ICW and Progress Wrestling and stuff like that?
I actually have not in a while now. I used to see that stuff because you can find anything on YouTube, but I actually, within the past year or two or so, I haven't seen anything within overseas, unfortunately. I take it they're doing good stuff over there.
ICW is doing great stuff at the moment, and Progress Wrestling, in my opinion, don't get me wrong, and this is not a knock to British wrestling in general, or the British wrestling promotions over here, the PCW, the Rev Pro UK, or any of that stuff as well. But the two top promotions over here, in my opinion, are ICW and Progress Wrestling. In my opinion, I mean, Progress Wrestling are all about that pure wrestling, and ICW are the UK's answer to the old ECW, because they're very like the old ECW, not the WWE regurgitated shit that they eventually brought out. WWE's BS, the old stuff back in the days when it was in Philadelphia, and it was based out of Philadelphia, and Paul Heyman was running it. ICW, alright, entirely different characters, but ICW have something very similar to that as well. And yes, they focus more on the wrestling as well, and their storylines are more entertaining as well. And it's amazing to me that something out of a little country called Scotland can bring something like that to the masses. And hey, I'm all for it, because like I say, I'm a big fan. I've subscribed to both of their on-demand services as well, Progress Wrestling On Demand and ICW On Demand as well. And if you haven't, to all my listeners out there as well, if you haven't, I highly recommend you subscribing to them. I don't know what the amount of money is that you pay again, because I think ICW's has gone up a little bit. Not a lot, but a little bit. And I think Progress is still the same as well, but it's worth the price. Believe you me, it's worth the price. Right, that's about wraps this up, Andrew. This is my time right now to step back and let you dish out your social media sites and where my listeners can find you and follow you, and how to talk to you as well if they want to talk to you more on the social media sites. So I'm stepping back. It's over to you. Where can my viewers and my listeners find you on this great platform we call social media?
Where you can find me on social media, I am on Twitter at Andrew Types Words is my handle. That's Andrew Types Words. And I'm on Instagram at Andrew Post Photos. That's Andrew Post Photos. You can also find me on Facebook under just Andrew Lockheart. I'm not sure how much longer I'm going to have my Facebook. But yeah, very active on Twitter and Instagram. Once again, Andrew Types Words and Andrew Post Photos, which you can message me, send me fan art. I mean, heck, why not? I'll throw that out there. Or booking information, whatever it is. I'm always on those, and I check them frequently.
And there you have it. Right, I'll do some quick promotions as well. Facebook.com/WMPodcast for more information on WM Podcast. And hell, if you want more information on Andrew, I could probably pass that over as well. I'll put the when this eventually goes out, I'll put the links in the description for Andrew as well, so you can find him as well. So they'll be all in the description whether you see this on YouTube or on SoundCloud, or even at the Swerve Talk Network as well, part of Max Wrestling Podcast, at Max Wrestling on Twitter as well. Check them out as well. They do a podcast, and like I say, I'm on the Swerve Talk Network because the guy who runs that, I'm on the Swerve Talk Network thanks to him. And you can check me out each and every week on the Swerve Talk Network as well. And this interview will be going up on the Wrestling Madness podcast. I'll try and get out this coming episode as this is coming out, but we'll have to wait and see as well, because like I say, I've got a lot of catching up to do on my podcast because I've got a lot of guests coming on as well. So this will be going out on the podcast very, very soon. I don't know when, but it will be going out on the podcast. I'll be uploading it as a full interview as well for you guys as well. So big thank you to Andrew. Thanks for coming on and doing this. Hopefully we can get you on again to do another one in the future.
Yeah, for sure. I appreciate the talk, Anthony, and I appreciate what you do. Just I know you're a one-man band going on right now, so just keep up the hard work, and I had a lot of fun.
And yeah, thank you. I had a lot of fun as well, and thank you for the compliment as well, and especially the compliment on Twitter. Yes, I am a one-man band. When it comes to this podcast, I've worked my socks off for 2 years, and it's people like Andrew and other guests as well that I get bring on and make it all worth it, because we all get to talk about the one thing we love: professional wrestling. And again, I say thank you to Andrew. My name is Anthony Walker. Wrestling Matters, wrestling fans, and until next time, we're out. Peace.
Be sure to listen to the Sunday Segway Wrestling Podcast.
What?
Every Sunday with Kenny Killer and the Galdem Sugar Shubs.
Yes! Yes!
With all the news, views, and laughter that you want.
They like jet airplanes. Woo! They like long limousines.
Every Sunday, the Sunday Segway Wrestling Podcast on Podomatic, iTunes, and YouTube.
So why don't you choke on that, slap nut?
There's only one wrestling podcast that gives you honest, uncut opinions and the most unique trivia since WWE did The Weakest Link. And the only place you can hear the show-stealing podcast promo every single week.
Covering WWE, TNA, Ring of Honor, Lucha Underground. Max Wrestling Podcast is the place for you. Join myself, Evan Money McCabe, the Phoenix, and the Butcher. Sundays at 7 p.m. UK time, 2 p.m. Eastern time with your host, Daddy Dangerously, on VOC Nation and the Swerve Talk Network.
Go to maxwrestling.wix.com/maxwrestling or follow us at Max Wrestling UK for more details.
Give in to the madness.
Right, guys, welcome back to the final part of the Wrestling Matters podcast, ladies and gentlemen. And I haven't got one top 10 for you this time around, guys. I got two. That's right, 2 top 10s. Just a quick side note, guys. Make sure you check out everyone on the Swerve Talk Network, Offshoot Radio with James and Mike Rodriguez and Roxy and Co. You've got Kenny with my mentor Kenny with him and Shugs for the Sunday Segway. And plus check out Sunday Segway TV as well. Be sure to check all that out as well. Check out Max Wrestling with Craig and Daz, the runners of the ship. Be sure to check them out as well and all that great stuff they do on that show. And also check out the one and only Mr. Evan McCabe as well. And also check out Mystery Island as well. Be sure to check all that out. All the links will be in the descriptions below, so you're not losing out on that good info. Now, like I say, guys, I got 2 top 10s for you. One caught my eye in what I was going to talk about anyway, but I'll put that on hold for a second because I got myself a very interesting top 10, courtesy of What Culture. God bless What Culture. And it was the top 10 reasons why Vince McMahon is not a genius. Yes, you heard me correct. Top 10 reasons why Senior McMahon is not a genius. And we'll get into number 10. He has created so many terrible characters. Now, I could probably vouch for this. So many terrible characters. I mean, this is the guy that came up with Naked Midian. You know, he's had Bastion Booger on his roster, which was just the worst. You know, he has made some good ones, but he's made some god-awful ones as well. I mean, I can give you a list. I mean, he even had Kane being, you know, Isaac Yankem DDS at one point, which in a way worked. And then he also turned Tony Atlas into Saba Simba. Go figure. Number 9 was he's also created so many terrible storylines. I can give you a few. I can give you one in particular. The Katie Vick storyline. You know, he's fucked up the invasion. That fucked him up. And there was also the Choppy PP angle from back in 98, which was taken from somebody actually doing it in real life. And he thought, oh yeah, I'll do it on my show too. Oh, my brain. And then also, we can't forget the whole God thing with him and HBK, Mae Young and Mark Henry, and Big Show and the line of stuff. I can give you a list. I could be here all fucking day with it, to be honest with you. Number 8, he pays no attention to details, which is quite obviously true. I mean, in WWE today, the anonymous, I mean, even at, I'll give you an example, the anonymous general manager, all this height of who it could have been and everything, and then when he eventually said, oh yeah, well, let's reveal who it is, turned out to be fucking Hornswoggle. Really? All them months putting up with this, and it's, oh yeah, it's only Hornswoggle. Well, I guess in a way that won't be around anymore because Hornswoggle is now left the company, so thank fuck for that. Number 7 is just unbelievable. He screws up foolproof storylines. Now, he tried to deny Daniel Bryan the opportunity that he got. You know, the opportunity, the big opportunity that he got when he eventually ended up going to WrestleMania. Apparently, Vince didn't want any part of that. He didn't see that working, or he didn't see that, oh yeah, well, that's not going to work. You know, he fucked up the WCW invasion, so people say anyway. You know, the biggest mistake he made was putting Vince and Shane and Stephanie in charge. You know, there was the whole stalking angle with him and with Undertaker and DDP, which, if you check on some of the voiceovers on the actual angle itself, when DDP's actually stalking Sarah back in the day, you could see it was Vince, and you wonder, you know, he fucked up the whole Nexus thing, in a way, putting CM Punk in charge of Nexus, whatever. Apparently he doesn't have a good eye for talent is the next one. Well, this is all key. Back in the day, I mean, he didn't think AJ Styles, it took AJ Styles this long. I mean, you know it's bad at the end of the day, guys, I'll just say it like this. You know it's bad at the end of the day when you've got Lex Luger trying to play the new Hulk Hogan. Hell, he even had to be convinced about Stone Cold Steve Austin. He saw Stone Cold Steve Austin as talented, but there's many people, Jake the Snake Roberts to name one, that have said that he had to convince Vince to buy Stone Cold, or to get Stone Cold in the roster, or to even go with him. He didn't see, because Vince didn't see anything in Steve. You know, I mean, nowadays you've got people like AJ Styles and Carl Anderson and Doc Gallows and all that, and Samoa Joe and this, you know, and A, B, and C. You know why you've got them like that? Because of Triple H. Because whether you love Triple H or not, he sees a good eye for talent. Not Vince. Big time. And it's just stupid. I mean, you can probably understand that. I mean, this is the guy who had Great Khali as the world champion. You know, whatever. Anyway, next one. Quick. The next one. He fails to evolve. I don't know what they mean by this one, but as I guess, you know, PG era kind of thing, 1980 stuff. I guess that's still going to this very day, in a way. I mean, when you had Hogan and the Warrior back in the day, they left and ended up going to Brett and Shawn. You know, all the characters that he had back in the day with their smoking guns, etc. I mean, while WCW rather, were doing the old NWO angle and that, he just doesn't see it. I mean, he's even gone back to that to this very day. You know, with Roman Reigns and before that John Cena. Excuse me, the hiccups there. And these League of Nations that he had, which, you know, oh god, which was the most pointless thing ever. Although it did make sense when Sheamus was the champion. He stole talent to build his companies, which is the next one, which is technically true. I mean, you got Gene Okerlund, Hulk Hogan from AWA. He didn't create Hulkamania, as many people think he did, because Hulkamania was created in AWA. Okay, granted, Vince took it to a new level, you know. You got people like Bob Orton, Jesse Ventura, Ricky Steamboat, even though Steamboat ended up going back to the NWA. You know, Hulk Hogan in particular, you know, Warrior. You got all this talent to push WWE to where it was. I mean, like I say, Hulk Hogan was created, Hulkamania was created back in the day in AWA. And if that hadn't have happened, Hogan wouldn't be here to where we were today. We wouldn't even be talking about Hogan the way we've been doing for God knows how long. He's blind to nepotism. is the next one. You know, and I guess you could say, in a way, I think it's getting to the point now where, you know, Stephanie McMahon is head of creative and that, and whatever's going on in there is not working clearly. You know, if Triple H wasn't Vince's son-in-law, would he be whatever world champion he was? You know, it's all that kind of stuff, man. You know, he just fails. I mean, this is the same guy that put the ECW championship on him and the WWE title on him at one point. And now, even at one point, this guy even said he was going to kill his own creation with the NWO angle, which didn't work. I mean, God, Bennett. You know, I mean, where do you go? He's failed at every venture, which is true. Is the next one, which is technically, in a way, true. I mean, I'll give you one example. XFL. You know, the only thing he's good at the end of the day is, you know, professional wrestling, to come to think of it, or wrestling, whatever you want to say to be. You know, because it you know, that's what he's done. I mean, at the end of the day, all he's done is, you know, WWE. You know, he's even branched out to the film market, if you will, and trying to make his own movies or turn WWE into, you know, the old booking of the old movie thing. But it just hasn't worked out, has it? I mean, let's face it. I mean, some of the movies have been good, but, well, at least from my perspective anyway, but they haven't been quality, have they? I mean, let's face it. And that about wraps it up for Vince McMahon anyway, guys. I mean, I'm done talking about it. So let's go on to the other one, which was Sting. Sting. The Sting. I can promise you this right now. It's 10 things that WWE wants you to forget about Sting. And I can promise you this right now. One of them is being his WWE run. God, Bennett, this poor bastard. 10 things WWE want you to forget about Sting, according to Walt Culture. His entire WWE run was number 10. This poor bastard had 4 matches in general. 2 matches on pay-per-view, 2 on Raw, okay? One was a DQ win over Big Show. The other one was in a tag match with John Cena, and I think that both happened on the same night, and the 2 pay-per-view matches he had, he lost both of them. He lost to Triple H at WrestleMania, which was complete bullshit, and he lost at Night of Champions, which pretty much ended his career. That injury he got at Seth Rollins at Night of Champions. Anyway, less said about that, the better, I say. Number 9 was he was actually managed at one point by Seb Coulter, Dutch Mantel. Back in the days when he was a tag team with the Ultimate Warrior, Jim Hellwig, back in the day. God's honest truth, man. Look it up. You will see, and there's actually a picture going around. I think I've got it on my Facebook page. There was actually a picture with Jim Hellwig, Sting, and Seb Coulter, Dutch Mantel. Unbelievable. Number 8, ladies and gents, boys and girls, distrusting Vince McMahon. Now, when Vince bought WCW back in the day, he could have had a chance of buying, you know, talent in and all that. He didn't do it to Sting. And Sting's been very vocal about this, because I remember seeing an interview about it. There was close things. You were supposed to come in and face Austin at one point, supposed to come in and face The Undertaker at one point. The reason why that being is he didn't trust Vince McMahon, because Vince McMahon had The Rock come out and bash Booker T at one point, saying he was a nothing and a happening nobody, and that's what Sting was afraid of, that would happen to him. Lo and behold, when he eventually signed, he was right, wasn't he? WrestleMania, anyone? The next one is he's a 2-time Hall of Famer. Yes, ladies and gentlemen, for those of you that don't watch TNA, he's a WWE Hall of Famer. Yeah, but he's also a TNA Hall of Famer. In fact, ladies and gents, he was the first member to be inducted into the TNA Hall of Fame. First member to be inducted into the TNA Hall of Fame. So basically, he is a 2-time Hall of Famer. Jeff Hardy knew what hit him was the next one. Now, for those of you that don't know, if you go back to Victory Road in TNA, it was supposed to be Sting defending the World Championship after coming back on an Impact show. He won the World title, and he was supposed to give Jeff Hardy his rematch. But for those of you that remember, Jeff Hardy came out and was high as a kite. This was back when Jeff was doing his drugs bullshit. And you could see it on the match. If you go back and watch the match, Bischoff comes out, tries to talk him, tries to, time out, tries to, end the match early and everything. And Sting beats him in, I believe, was about a minute at the most. And then Sting walks back up the aisle and the crowd shouting, bullshit, bullshit, bullshit. And the World Heavyweight Champion at the time is turning around going, I agree. Worst chair shot ever is the next one. And he delivered it in TNA to Rob Van Dam. Oh, heel, no, is the next one after that. The amount of times they've tried to turn him heel in WCW, and hell, they even tried it in TNA a couple of times, it just didn't work. Turning him heel was like turning Goldberg heel. You turn the franchise player of the WCW, you turn him heel in 99, to combine with Hulk Hogan. People didn't get it, man. They tried it again in TNA, again, didn't get it. This guy is the franchise player, and he's an absolute legend, You can't turn him heel. Wrestling with the enemy. Now, in TNA, he wrestled in TNA. People probably obviously won't decide that in WWE, or probably won't get that in WWE, but he has wrestled in TNA. He's had many, many matches, but that's what WWE does not want you to know, ladies and gentlemen. WWE don't give a fuck about TNA, rightly so, but WWE don't want you to know, or don't want you to even think that Sting wrestled in TNA. If you went up and asked somebody in WWE, did Sting wrestle in TNA? No, he did not. Scorpion Deathlock versus the Sharpshooter. Now, apparently, you can argue about this, whether or not... This was invented by a Japanese wrestler, by the way, the Sharpshooter, but the Scorpion Deathlock, whatever you see fit. Apparently, Brett was used it a few times, but apparently, Brett got convinced to use it by Pat Patterson. If you believe, I mean, like I say, it's up for debate, but from what it sees, Brett stole it from Sting. That's what it's all saying. But who cares? Because it's a great move anyway. And even I've used it a few times on people. Phenom versus Icon has already been done. Now, everybody's thinking to themselves, ladies and gentlemen, you know, oh, this Undertaker and, you know, Sting match has never took place. And granted, it hasn't. But this was before the Undertaker was Undertaker. Back in his WCW heyday, me, Mark Callis. This guy got a WCW title shot at one of the biggest pay-per-views in WCW against Sting, who was then world champion. So technically, it has been done, but not just at WrestleMania, you know. Like I said, not just at WrestleMania, and not, you know, in the way we wanted it, Undertaker versus Sting. But it has happened nonetheless. And that about wraps that up, ladies and gentlemen. So I hope you've enjoyed them two quick little top 10, explained them as best I can for you guys. And that about wraps it up for the Wrestling Matters podcast. Hope you've enjoyed it. Part 3 of Andrew Lockhart, rather. Well, I'm thinking on what culture. Andrew Lockhart's interview as well. Hope you guys have enjoyed the whole podcast. Love you guys for your support. Love yous all you guys putting the effort in, taking the time out to listen. It's been absolutely a pleasure doing this for you today. And until next time, guys, be sure to check out all the family, Sunday Segway, Max Wrestling, Evan McCabe, Offshoot Radio, the Swerve Talk Network in general. Also check out Mystery Island. Check out all the good stuff on the Wrestling Matters channel as well. Also check out my games channel as well while you're at it. I've got a few things in the pipeline for that channel as well. A few other things as well. But until next time, guys, this has been episode 111 of the Wrestling Matters podcast. Until next time, episode 112. I'll see you later. Peace.
Well, enough is enough, and it's time for a change!
Professional wrestling! This is it! This is us standing up!
Yes! 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 Yes!
That's 13-14!
Dina, I am the best in the world.
Cause that's the bottom line! Cause Stone Cold said so!